West Coast of the United States. I have no idea what time it is down
I'm Dave.
I'm the Mechie.
He's the Mechie, and this is Shiny Side Out, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on Revolution.radio. That's the website name, because you're the little talking guy. You are actually on camera. So, just remember that. Buy some merchandise or donate if you say anything that we say. No, if you like what we say, that's what I meant. Join us in the chat room. I'm right there. Yeah, I'm pointing towards the other screen. It's there. You can talk to us while we're on air. It's just really cool. Mechie, this is an incredible show number today. It is 700.
It is 700. You can't really do that in reverse. So yeah, 700. Today is where we celebrate 700 shows on the air. And if you do the rough math, and it's really rough math, that's about 14 years, thereabouts. 14 and a bit, in fact. So that's how long we have been punishing the airwaves with our ignominious presence.
So the easiest way to think about it is there's about 2 weeks a year we don't broadcast, and this is exactly 14 years. But because it kind of drifts as time goes on, that's just what happens. So don't sweat. If you've never heard us before, we are Shiny Side Out. It's the correct way to fold your tinfoil hat. If you've ever wondered what the best way to do it was, well, now you know. Did you know you can tune into us online on your smart device directly via an app, or listen at home on a Gray's Tabletop digital radio? That's something you can do. You don't just have to watch this, say, on Rumble, or you don't have, or Spotify for that matter, or YouTube. We also do shorts on TikTok and Instagram, and on YouTube as well. There's a whole bunch. And do like, comment, and subscribe to anything that you see of ours, and try and help with the algorithm. Ironically, we've started to do shorts only recently, and we got 55,000 views maybe the first month, and then it's trailed off to nearly nothing, believe it or not. And there's other artists, what is this art? It's no better than Yoko Ono's art, I'll tell you that much. So, if you watch anything we see, other artists are also complaining about the same thing. There's just this big dive away from promoting our kind of speech, if that makes sense. So, it's young days. Hopefully you can make a change to the algorithm for us to enable us to get our message out. Do like, share, subscribe, and comment, like I said. Tell other people about the station, because you can donate to the station by purchasing something, or you can tell someone else if you can't. If you don't have the means to do it. That's the easiest way for you to assist in getting the message out to people. If you hear your thoughts come out of our mouths and you've not interacted with us, then we're aligned. That's where it is. And if you can help people understand what it means yourself, go ahead. Help boost the station's profile. Help get the station up and running. Mechie and I also have a bunch of different ways you can help us as well, because we do this for free. This is 14th year of doing it for free. And if you'd like this, if you ever hear our work and you'd like us on your station as well, happy days, happy to have a chat. If you'd like to not syndicate us, but if you'd like it to reach more ears in today's modern landscape, then do reach out to us. Mechie, I'm broadcasting out of Dark and John country today.
And I'm, of course, in Dark country.
And I want to acknowledge a few things. One, that we also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where we live. But also, I'm going to say, I did miss Solaris' show today, and I'm really upset about that. And I'm going to jump into the archives once our show is concluded and download a copy of her show and listen to it. Because you can. It's free. Do that. And if you miss any of our shows and you want to hear the original show, not something that's been cut apart, this streams live through Revolution Radio, and you can go to their station, revolution.radio, and download the archives and have a listen to our shows. And if you would like to ever help us put together clips or anything like that, do reach out to us as well. Everything helps, Mackie, doesn't it? Oh,
yes, absolutely.
Now, saying that, I don't know what we're going to do. Are we going to just do the 700th show all the way through the 2 hours today? Or are we still going to have a format of doing, because we haven't spoken about it, we had no pre-meeting. So would you like to, you call it. It's up to you.
Oh, look, either way, I'm going to send you the updated text in a second.
Oh, it's updated from this afternoon already.
Yeah, it's updated from this afternoon. How about them apples, huh?
That's how we roll. And I didn't even look at the last
right.
one, so I won't know what's changed.
No, I didn't. No, should you?
I was going in blind on this one, yeah.
Look, I think we should discuss the current situation, and then we jump into the hypothesis, and maybe it'll actually sort of kind of fit in where we are, because right now we are at a very critical juncture of where the hypothesis actually lives, if you will. And what I mean by that is, over the years, we've looked at a lot of stuff, and before the show, I've always had an interest in certain things. Dave had a certain interest in things, and even before the show came about, I had formulated in my mind, certain ideas, as you do. And we'll go into that in the hypothesis. But right now, we're at a critical juncture in global politics, which will allow for certain things to happen. And just recently in 2020, and it's fairly recent, if you think about the whole plan unfolding over, millennia, the COVID or SARS-CoV-2 epidemic prevented an event that would have significantly changed the landscape of the world. And this prevention was brought about through fear and uncertainty, vis-a-vis the pandemic. And because I always thought for the longest time that it would take the death of a great many people, for this, I guess, stopping of the ascendance or the awareness cascade or rapture, whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter, to happen. But it's enough to bring down the vibration of the planet, and that's what the fear and uncertainty did, right? It was a sort of a childish thing in many ways of me, or naive, to think that a great many people would have to be killed. It's not necessary, and it's not what the parasites want at all. They want to manage decline over the next couple of decades. The population will shrink significantly, and that's how they're going to get to where they need to go. Suffice it to say, the critical number that we had was 7,772,000,000, I think it was, and some people on the planet. There was the critical Fibonacci number in our sequence that would trigger an event. Funnily enough, unbeknownst to me or Dave, the indigenous elders in Australia had prepared to go to Uluru for a ceremony to do exactly that, to raise the vibrational frequency of the earth. Essentially to pray for, if you want to call it that, enlightenment. Not really, and I'm simplifying things, but just to couch it into in terms people can understand more easily.
And we only found out about that inadvertently.
Yeah, much later.
Like 2 months or something around the date.
Yeah, completely. We had no idea. But then I was actually surprised, because it lined up completely with what the hypothesis predicted. It was really quite amazing. And that's the funny thing with the hypothesis, right? And I'm not suffering from confirmation bias, because I'm looking actively at things that will disprove it. But so far, I haven't been able to disprove the hypothesis. Right? Some of it is conjecture. Some of it requires leaps in deduction. Yes, but not a lot. Not a lot. And there are certain paradigms that I postulate as true, which aren't accepted by official scientific thinking. But that doesn't really worry me too much, because scientific thinking is updated all the time. Simple example: when I was, a child in high school, the age of humanity was 100,000 years. That's how long they gave us. Now it's been pushed to 350,000 years, and it goes further and further into the past. Neanderthal, when I grew up, was our ancestor.
That's
now
right.
we've learned, no, not at all. It's a contemporary. In fact, our cousin, more than a cousin, because we interbred. Right? So it's a very complex picture that's forming in our this past, with many species of humans coexisting for very long stretches of time. And I think it's always been like this, more or less, right? And but look, there's a lot of stuff going on.
But
Which
I want to point something out.
Yeah, go on.
You started with this, and this is the geopolitical changing of our society as a human race. And I've got on screen here, I found a story, and it's from 9 hours ago. And by the way, thank you, Mitchell Bupp. They're in the chat room. He says that David Cook was on Solaris's show, by the way. Thank you very much. I actually went to school with a David Cook, not the same one, I'm going to presume, though when I'll have a listen to it, I'll see. But he said it was an English fellow, maybe. Yeah, anyway, interesting nonetheless. So I've got a story on the screen, and it is Trump nominates ex-Fox News host Tammy Bruce as deputy UN ambassador.
Nice.
I knew you would like this story, and I know that I've been having some conversations with my wife about what do I believe and what position do I take on certain topics, because even like on the show I try to stay as center as possible, but the center changes because the world is changing. After COVID, during COVID, the world went completely left. I mean, it was shocking how left it suddenly went. That was everybody. And I just happened to remain in the middle, and the whole world moved left. That means I was on the extreme right, and it's like I didn't do anything. And I'm agreeing with what Fox News was saying, which surprised me because I wasn't a Fox News advocate before that happened. Now, Meki, I'm seeing the same thing. We already have 2 Fox people, or at least guests of Fox, in the US sea level, beneath Trump. So we have say similar right wing, Bongino there as well, Vance, as you know. So I'm kind of still querying at what position here is the UN. Why would a right-leaning Fox News host be elevated to deputy UN ambassador, and what could that mean for everybody? See what I'm saying? And as a listener, how do you interpret this? Because there's no CNN hosts in Trump's team.
So, if that's a question, I've got the answer.
It is a question.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so recently, this is only a couple of days ago, I was listening to analysis on UN funding and the future of the UN, etc., right? And so the US is withdrawing big chunks of money from the UN, right? So Trump has stopped funding a whole bunch of things. And what that ultimately means, there will be no UN. So what we're seeing now is because the question was asked, right? This was in an interview. Well, if all of this is being taken away, all the funding goes, and then this can't be done, that can't be done. So what is the future of the UN? And then the analyst said, well, there is no future of the UN. The UN as an organization, if this goes through, is finished. Okay, I mean, it might still meet and discuss things. And there might still be people, I don't know, coming together, etc., in New York. But the UN will not be able to actually do anything because now the UN is actually funding things, right?
And they're a little toothless. They're a little toothless.
No, that's not.
But the League of Nations also, fell apart. So
no, the League of Nations was much worse. But with United Nations, now what the United Nations cannot do, it can't enforce any of the World Court or the ICC rulings, right? Because there's no actual police force or international jail system, etc. So they can't do that. No, the problem with the UN is that, or will be, it does a lot of things. The UN has a lot of projects and programs similar to USAID, right? So USAID obviously is now also defunct. The funding was cut, and the same thing is going to happen to the UN. So all of the things that the UN did, all the programs, all the aid it was giving, peacekeeping and a whole bunch of other stuff simply will no longer happen. Okay, I'm not really too concerned at the moment about whether or not the UN can enforce any of its resolutions or not. Obviously, as a body, it no longer reflects the reality in the world, right? The UN Security Council should be done away with as well. The veto power should be done away with. So either we have an international body that is, considered our arbiter, if you will, or we don't. And right now we don't, and we never really have. We never really had this international body that could actually enforce, and that's what David means by toothless tiger. We never had this international body that could actually enforce all of these things unless the US or China or Russia were in favor of it, right? Because those are permanent members of the Security Council together with Britain and France. Again, completely antiquated.
Yeah. Once you get a click going in the Security Council, it's their way, or you don't get anything happening.
Yeah, but more importantly, and this is probably the most critical thing, there's not a single nation, not one, from the Southern Hemisphere that's in the Security Council.
That's right.
Not one. So what does that mean? It means, what it means is that the UN might go away. We might have something else. And now the League of Nations was much, much worse because it was in a time of complete chaos. It was trying to be funded. It was the Great Depression. It was the end. It was the time between the two world wars. Europe was in ruins. Germany was a shambles. It led to the rise of Mussolini. It led to the rise of Hitler. It led to the rise of Franco and politicians, or I guess authoritarians of that caliber. And eventually, of course, it led to World War II. The League of Nations. Because America didn't participate from the start, and then Italy and Germany just walked out. Not interested, thank you very much. So that was it's just as much of a failed experiment as the Weimar Republic in Germany. But the UN, the United Nations, had everybody in it, mostly, right? And they all participated, and I think it was useful. And it does run a lot of programs that help people, right? Just as USAID did. And I think it is extremely short-sighted to both get rid of USAID as well as the UN programs, because you don't influence countries with your trading power or your military might. You might frighten them, but if you want to create allies and friends and favorable market conditions, you need the soft diplomacy that these programs provide you with. The influencers, right? Who's running this program? Oh, America's. Oh, really? Oh, that's awesome. That's great. So, the UN is running. Oh, that's very good. Because that's necessary, right? You take that away, others will, jump into the breach, fill the gap, fill the vacuum, and China's doing it just fine. Thank you very much. Others might jump in as well. Maybe India. Who knows? If they get their act together ever. But this is really the problem here, right? It's moving into a non-relevance, and if the funding disappears. All of those programs will no longer exist. Yes, you can still meet. Okay, you can still meet in New York or wherever. You can still do all those wonderful things, but it'll be even less even less meaningful, right? It's been completely pointless to do anything there if the funding goes. Again, if the funding goes. Now, Donald Trump is astounding. He has dismantled in 6 months almost every single thing that catapulted America to the leadership position in the world, right? Almost every single thing. It's like if you wanted to curb the influence of America in the world, if you wanted to isolate America, if you wanted long-standing allies to become upset with America and look for new allies, you couldn't have a better playbook than what Donald Trump just did. And if you think, even for a second, any of this stuff is going to make America great again, you got to think again. And Donald Trump, and I was waiting, right? And this is the first time I'm saying it. It's been we are now at a point where I can comfortably make this prediction. Donald Trump has destroyed America and is destroying it. Okay, and you will see this over the next few years. The economy is going to be in the toilet. People are going to be a lot poorer. They won't be able to afford anything. A lot of people will simply no longer get the medical care or the education or even the food that they need. Because while the idea of bringing manufacturing back is not a bad one, there are two very important things to consider here. One, America is the second largest manufacturer in the world after China. The second largest. A lot of stuff is being made in America still. And it's good stuff. I buy it myself, right? I buy all the KitchenAid stuff and so forth. I like it. I love it, Timberland, etc. So a lot of stuff is manufactured in America. It happens. It's second largest in the world. Point number two. In order for certain manufacturing areas or expertise to come back to America, you need to plan it out. You can't just, put tariffs on everything and hope for the best. Let me explain. If you have gotten, if you're Australia, in Australia, we've gotten rid of all our car manufacturing. No more cars are made in Australia, not one. Right? They said it's not going to affect a lot of industries that were delivering car parts, etc. have also gone, and it's not a good thing. But it's gone completely. It's been gone now for a few years. Now we want to bring it back. Now this is the same for every other sector of the economy. But in Australia, it's a small example, so it might be easier to understand than if I talk about America. But the same thing applies in America. So you want to bring back manufacturing of cars to Australia. Let's say you want to do that. Okay, now if you're lucky, the factories might still be there, right? Like I'm talking about the buildings. The machinery is probably gone, but the buildings is all there. Okay, so let's say it's still there. It still has all the zoning, all electricity and water requirements that it did before. But let's say it's still all there. Okay. You now have to reinvest in all the machinery that you need to manufacture cars. You need to build up the industries that would supply component parts for your car, electrical parts or plastic parts or glass parts or whatever. And if you want them to be done locally, you have to establish them locally, okay? Then you have to train the workforce. Because the people that used to work there, they're probably doing other stuff now, right? Now some might come back. You might be lucky and get a few of the workforce back. But the longer the time has been since you've gotten rid of that industry, the less likely it will be that you have these qualified workers. So you need qualified workers. So you have to get them, educate them, etc., right? But let's say you don't have the factory anymore. You have to build the factory, right? So you have to build the factory. That'll take a few years, right? You have to train the workforce. That'll take a few years. You have to reestablish your supply chains. Make no mistake, right? You have to source your material. You have to understand where you can warehouse it. You have to understand how much the whole thing is going to cost you. Because right now, these things are established. But if you're moving everything, you have to re-establish them. And this will take years. During the COVID pandemic, Dave, I thought, I know you did the same thing. Mm-hmm. The perfect time to bring stuff back on shore. Shorten supply lines. Because we waited for a long time for certain products to arrive in Australia. Because everything was shut down, no more flights, and then the borders were shut. And then when the borders were reopened, slowly it was trickling in. But for a good chunk of time, there was just no international trade per se, or very limited international trade.
Just an example.
Now, if
wait between 2 and 3 years to get an AP, which is an access point from Cisco. Not their fault.
Yeah,
just the supply chain.
And that should take a couple of months at best. Now,
yeah.
if the pandemic did not change our ways, if it didn't compel corporations to future-proof their businesses, shorten supply lines, bring some manufacturing back or wherever they are onshore, then what Donald Trump does won't do it either. And I tell you why. The key reason why, not because of the effort. I mean, if the companies had certainty that these policies would stay in place, including the tariffs, etc., they would do it. I have no doubt that it would be done. But again, let me just explain to you why that won't happen. If it were to happen, the products that you're buying that are made in America, that are made somewhere else, like an iPhone, would triple in price easily. Yeah. It would easily triple in price because the labor cost in America is just a lot higher, right? Even if the large chunks of the manufacturing process are automated, right? The cost of doing business in America, cost of electricity, of water, of land, taxes, labor, etc., are much higher than, let's say, in China. It's just a fact of life. That's the truth. You can look it up. So products would be more expensive, but you could do it. But they would be more expensive, right? But the key reason why they won't do it, they'll say now, yeah, we'll do it, and we'll invest this, and they might even start building. But ultimately, what Donald Trump has done, he has signed these decrees into existence with an executive order. None of the things, the tariffs specifically, none of this has gone through Congress. None of this has been ratified as a law. Therefore, the next president, whoever that is, can go in and say, you know what, I don't like any of this. I get rid of all the tariffs. I rescind everything that Trump has done.
That's right.
Right? And off it goes. And all of a sudden, the corporations that were compelled to rebuild their factories in America are left holding the bucket, having invested maybe tens of billions of dollars, because all of a sudden they're no longer competitive, right? Because everybody who's manufacturing in China or India or Bangladesh or wherever they're manufacturing, would be magnitudes cheaper than the people manufacturing in America. That's just the truth. So the corporation would say, yeah, sure we'll do it, right? And they might even make moves toward doing it. But Donald Trump is going to be around for another 4 years, really, or 3.5 years. That's the end of his administration, right? Unless he finds a way to stay in power. But then that would open a whole other can of worms, and we're not going to go there right now.
But Mekki,
that's the key.
Yeah, you and I talked about there at least a decade in standing up a true manufacturing facility somehow. Whether it's CPUs or Apple. On the screen I've got an Apple announcement from 2 days ago about the $600 billion that they're going to put towards American manufacturing, probably automated only. They talk about 450,000 jobs that will on-prem within the US be required to support that new industry that they're standing up, because all of those people are elsewhere. I think you're right. Trump's only there for 4 years, right? However, 3.5 years or less. So when he's gone, what happens to the picture? If there's, say, the tax relief that these companies are no doubt, in my mind, going to receive from the government as a promise, they may not even be intact by the end of this, and the whole thing's just been a waste of effort. Could you imagine if an iPhone, Mekki, cost $10,000?
Yeah, but that's the point.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's exactly right. But at the moment, half of one, Apple makes a product in China, and then it's put on a shelf, and then suddenly that shelf is the ownership of an Irish company, and then it's written down to zero, and it's got a net cost of shipment. Like there's no the value of the product is now written off. So is that going to happen in the US? Probably not. Probably not at all.
Look, the thing is this, right? Corporations are there only for one reason: to make money. That's it. That's the only reason for their existence, is to make money. There's no other. There's no higher moral philosophy that's being followed here. It's just to make cash.
That's right.
And they will follow. Always, they will follow the path of least resistance. When globalization started, and this was with the opening up of China and so forth, etc., back in the 70s and 80s, when that started in anger, right? When corporations started to move to offshore production, delivery, etc., and even service centers, right? The profits they were making were astronomical.
That's right.
It doesn't cost $2,000 to make an iPhone. It costs $50 to make an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and even if you consider, transportation costs, warehousing costs, the profit that these corporations make is obscene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on the products that are made elsewhere. There's no way that you could compete at all, even with all the tariffs in the world. Mm-hmm. You can't. And what worries me is this, Dave. Donald Trump doesn't seem to understand mathematics. And I want to be very clear here. Now, everybody says he's this brilliant genius businessman and all that stuff, right? No. First of all, he's not. He's the only person that I know of in history that has bankrupted a casino. It's the only person that I know of. If someone has someone else,
that's got to be a challenge.
Please.
There's a challenge.
Do tell me. But the problem that I have is it's a very simple problem with Donald Trump and his lack of understanding, right? And I gave him the benefit. I was very even-handed for the last few months. I said, let's see what he can do. Right? Some things will be problematic, but hey, if it works out, awesome. But it's not going to work out. And the reason I keep harping on about it is because it's important for the world. This is my problem. Donald Trump said he's going to bring down the cost of pharmaceutical products, medication, he said, right? I'm going to bring down the cost of medication. And this is what he said, and I'm quoting. I might get the percentages wrong, but not the magnitude. We're going to bring it down to 500% and 1,200% and 1,500%. Okay, if a pill costs $1, that dollar represents 100% of the cost to the consumer. So you have $1, you give the dollar to the chemist, and the chemist gives you a pill that's 100% of the cost. If I reduce the cost of the pill by 100%, the pill is now free. Mm-hmm. If I reduce the cost of the pill by 1,500%, the chemist is going to give me $15 when I take the pill. Mm-hmm. Do you understand the flaw, the massive flaw of logic that Donald Trump is I don't know. I mean, I don't even know how he could think that would be a good thing to say. If you said, I'm going to reduce the cost of medical goods by 90%.
Harvard or something. Yeah.
Harvard. But even let's say 90%. So instead of paying $1, you pay 10 cents.
That's
People
right.
would go, that's fantastic. But he said, and that's why I think he just doesn't understand mathematics. And this is really simple math. This is like math that my kids learn in year 4 and 5, right? Percentages. The totality of a thing is 100%. That's the totality of it. That's the definition. 100%. Because that's what it means. Okay?
That's okay. I had a boss that said, can you do 110% effort?
Yes, I will, boss. Every October. You get me for 110%.
I said, if you extend the amount of hours in a day, sure, you'll see that as a result. That's right.
Every 25th hour of the day, I'll be 110%. But this is a basic flaw in I have to assume in his thinking, in his logic, he just doesn't understand it. He didn't have an education. I mean, I'm not surprised anymore that most of his businesses went bankrupt. Now, he has never declared bankruptcy, right? He's smart that way. And he'll take you to court. And what Roy Cohn taught him was to attack. That's right. What Roy Cohn taught him. That's how he taught him how to be. But there's no way that you could get percentages wrong if you have even a little understanding of how business works and numbers work, right? Now, if I had my father in the corner, always ready to bail me out when something goes sideways like he did, maybe I wouldn't worry about the small stuff either. Percentages, who cares? 1,500%. The pharmaceutical company, they will pay you to take their medicine. They will pay you. So if you've got cancer, you'll be a millionaire. You'll be a millionaire. Good for you.
Increase something by 15,000% or 1,500%.
Yeah, totally.
That's easy. But it doesn't work in reverse. Mm-hmm.
And see, I think, Dave, that's a very good point. And I think that's where he just doesn't understand how even simple math works. I find it worrisome. I find many things worrisome about him right now, right? And forget the whole Epstein thing. That's just a disaster. Mm-hmm. But simple things like that, and telling a story which is blatantly false about his uncle and the Unabomber and MIT and Harvard, which are demonstrably wrong. All of the things he said are demonstrably wrong. You don't have to look hard to find out they're wrong. Are we looking at a massive decline in his cognitive function? Is that what we're seeing here? Look, but the reason I'm thinking the hypothesis is important is because we are in the midst of managed decline. We are in the midst of America becoming a third-rate nation. Military powerful, but not for long, because the economy will be destroyed by what Donald Trump is doing. The tariffs are being paid for by American consumers. Some might be eaten by the importers. They might even do a sweetheart deal with the manufacturers where they will say, hey, you know what? We'll reduce the cost of our product by 10, 20% or 5%, or whatever the case may be. That might happen, right? But the vast majority of the cost of the tariffs will be borne by the American consumer. So people will get poorer. And everything is going to get worse. He has pulled funding for Medicare, Medicaid. He's pulled funding for education. He has pulled funding for everything except for the $1 trillion tax cuts for his buddies. That's the only thing that he's consistently funding.
And then the big, beautiful bill.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's it.
So you save all this money, and it's fantastic, and then you spend more than you saved.
Correct. On all the tax cuts.
That's right.
And not only that, he's deporting people that were fundamental to the American economy. Right? Just because you're an illegal immigrant. And let's be clear here. The American economy has always relied on cheap labor internally, right, to get things done. Okay, now and cheap labor comes in the form of, I guess, non-documented and maybe not, maybe less than qualified. I mean, tertiary qualified workforces, people that come in and just work hard but very cheaply. Okay, because that's the American dream.
A lot of menial tasks, and back in the 80s when I went to school there, it was gardening was the majority work of people coming across the border from Mexico. And that's completely okay. Mekhi, one thing, I want to add this. There should have been an amnesty to say, to set some threshold numbers. You and I, we understand how this works. And you say, okay, well, if you've been in the country for 10 years and you've had a job and you haven't got a criminal record, for instance, right, since you've been here, and you've paid your taxes, then do a national test and become a citizen. Just do that.
Yeah, that's it.
That's not hard. Then suddenly you've just got the majority of people that have lived with the threat of deportation their whole lives. They haven't had access to all of the things that a normal citizen would, but they've been part of the US economy. And I mean a positive part of the economy. And that is what is needed before you start going down the road of trying to get rid of people. And I think it's a false thing. And imagine the businesses that have gone now.
Completely. Now,
it doesn't make any sense.
I want to give you a simple example. Yeah, there was a simple example which I thought was telling for the entire effort here that is being undertaken. There was a gentleman, I think a gardener or landscaper, again from south of the border and undocumented as far as we know. But essentially, ICE came in, arrested him, and then we learned that I think 2 or 3 of his sons are either. Well, I think one is a retired Marine. I think a couple are still in active duty Marines. Now, clearly they are Americans because they were born in America, right? So their birthright. That's something Donald Trump wants to change as well. But they were born in America, and they're American citizens. Their father is not, but clearly this gentleman, who came to America many decades ago illegally, he built a business and worked hard. He's a landscaper, clearly making a good living. But he also instilled his sons and maybe the rest of his family with this with the right mindset, if you will, for Americans.
The patriotism ethic.
Yeah, duty to the country. This country has treated me well. You are my sons. You've seen it. It's the American dream. And the sons listen to their father. And you know what? Yes, we want to serve. We want to offer our service to America. Become Marines. Go on active duty, etc., etc. Right? And that's the problem here. Because the thing is this: Donald Trump said many things, and one of the things he said was this: we're going to get rid of all the gangs and the killers and the rapists and the crazy people that have been flooding our country. And that's what people voted for. Yeah, get rid of the gangs and get rid of the drug dealers and the murderers and the rapists. Absolutely, 100%. Well, all of them should go out. But they're not that easy to find. They're not that easy to find. And in order to make headlines and look good in the press, etc., and boost the numbers of deportations, they are just going after anyone. Now, I don't know how many gang bangers and drug dealers hang out, in I guess in these what's it called, Bunnings-like stores in America. I think it's called Barnyard or whatever it's called, Walmart, and essentially day laborers are waiting for work, right? Not too many gang members would be there waiting for a day job on a building site, right? But that's where ICE goes to get their quota. Okay, so you're getting all the wrong people out of the country, right? Sure, some gang members have been pushed out. That's awesome. That's good for you. Great. Do you think that's going to stop the flow of drugs? Do you think that's going to stop the murders and the rapes and the beatings and all the other violence? Really? Good luck to you. You're living in a fantasy world. The problem here is...
Go
on.
Oh, South Park just did an episode where
I saw that.
they go to the Dora Explorer stage play, and ICE goes in there and takes a whole bunch of people from there. And I good on you, Matt and Trey, for doing a great job and being the voice of reason. They do it perpetually, and obviously there's some controversy over the size of some anatomy for Donald Trump in a latest episode too. And if you've got the time and the means, do watch it.
It is funny. It is, but I'll be honest with you, Dave. I did watch it, and both episodes. It's only been 2 for this season so far, but I was astounded that they would go there, because Donald Trump is not just shown as a drawn character. He's actually this is obviously CGI. They show Donald Trump running through the desert naked eventually. I don't know why he's running. Can't remember what the context was. I think he was. They said to make America great again or something.
Sure.
But I was truly astounded by the level to which they stooped. I mean, this is. I mean, I don't think they have been as harsh on anyone as they have been on him now with this particular episode.
Oh, but I suppose Saddam Hussein is got to be number 2 on the list.
But Saddam Hussein was never. There were pictures, like they actually used his photograph, like they do with in the bed with Satan, but they never used Saddam Hussein as a CGI kind of thing, or AI generated video.
Yeah, sure.
So, but it is true. Donald Trump has clearly pushed Saddam Hussein's out of Satan's bed.
That's right.
Look, but the Dora Explorer, to our listeners, I have to explain. It's a Spanish language program initially, so there's a lot of it's bilingual Spanish and English.
That's right.
But that's why ICE would think they would find people there. That was the whole gag with Kristi Noem going in there and her face melting as well.
Backpack.
Yeah, but this is really the worry here. Like, I'm really worried that these people don't understand fundamental concepts. Fundamental concepts. I've never been very impressed with politicians or even C-level people ever in my life. I've met many, and I've never been impressed ever. Maybe one. And I look at what they say, and I look at what, maybe 2. I look at what they say and what they do, and normally, this was the case in George W. Bush Jr.'s administration. They have other people around them that know better. And really drive the ship, if you will. So nobody would argue that George Bush Jr. was actually in charge. Nobody would say, because that's a nonsense. It was Rumsfeld, it was Cheney, it was a whole bunch of other people, right? And his father threw those 2 guys as well, but not Jr. So yeah, that's right, Mitchell. Tariffs on corporations are taxes on the people. That's 100% correct. That's 100% correct, and that's the huge issue. Right? Now, I'm all for countries becoming autonomous, like they used to be in the olden days. I mean, why not? Sure. But there should be trade, and that's a good thing as well. And tariffs are useful if you want to protect a nascent economy. The reason America had tariffs initially, and this goes couple hundred years back was because they were protecting themselves from more sophisticated and cheaper manufacturing countries like Germany and Great Britain, right? But then the last time we've seen tariffs like this in the world, in America specifically, was during the Great Depression 100 years ago. And that didn't work. It actually made the Great Depression worse. And again, I find it astounding that, I mean, these people have access to history books, right? I'm sure they do. And I mean, any person that has studied history even fleetingly can tell you that certain things work and other things don't work. And this doesn't work. It's a real problem. And people will eventually have to pay for all of it. Except, of course, Trump's buddies, the billionaires. They don't have to pay anything. They're paying less now. It's just astounding. If you're rich, go to America. If you're rich, go and live in America. That's your country to be right now. Mm-hmm. That's where you want to be. Because this is what's going to happen. More and more people are going to lose their jobs. More and more people will be able, will not be able to buy groceries anymore or as much as they need. Labor will become cheaper simply because the workforce is going to increase significantly because of AI. That's correct, Mitch. Yep, the governments were much smaller then. And I think our governments are way too big. And I've said this before, and our system doesn't work. We need a new system. But so people will be losing their jobs because of AI and other things. And people will have to pay more for less, really, these days. And they will have to work more, finding more unqualified or black market jobs or whatever, and jobs that were previously done maybe by illegal immigrants might be done by Americans that were born in America, etc., because there's just no other work. So I can eventually, if this keeps going, the American economy is going to collapse. And because the American economy is going to collapse, the global economy will be affected very badly. I'm not sure the global economy will collapse, but it will be very badly affected. The other thing that's going to happen is that the US dollar is going to disappear as the currency of choice. So right now, the US dollar is the reserve currency of the world. Why? Because people have confidence in the US dollar, right? That's why America can raise its debt ceiling all the time. Another $1 trillion, because what they do is this. The administration goes, we need another $1 trillion. They go to the Federal Reserve. They give them a piece of paper. I'm sure it's all electronic, these days. But they give them a piece of paper that says, the American government owes you $1 trillion. Just go and print it. So you say, okay, here's $1 trillion. Thank you. What the Federal Reserve then does, it packages up the debt, it's debt. The American government says, I owe you X amount of money, right? And then this debt is packaged up by the Federal Reserve into something that's called bonds, right? Treasury bonds, etc. And what they do with that is they sell it to other countries. Like Japan is the biggest holder, China is the second biggest, and then, and so on and so forth. And they hold those American debt notices, if you will, promissory notes, call them if you like, as a guarantee, as a security against their own economy. So it's like, in their mind, it's better than money in the bank because the US dollar is so strong. The US economy is so strong. It'll never experience hyperinflation. Now, hyperinflation is when you buy a loaf of bread for $100 in the morning and then in the evening it costs you $1 billion. That's hyperinflation, which happened in Germany in the 1920s and 30s. Well, actually, my 1920s more than 30s. But that's where it's heading, right? And once the global reserve currency is no longer the US dollar, but the euro or the British pound or whatever, right? Whatever currency might pop up, maybe even a crypto, who knows? That's the end of the American economy. When the US dollar is no longer the reserve currency for the world, that's it. Because it will no longer be able to raise its debt ceilings. Because no one wants to buy US bonds anymore. Mm-hmm. You see the problem here? If America goes down this path any further, it will be catastrophic. And we're not that far away from it. Already, we saw a huge bond sell-off. That's why Donald Trump paused his first round of tariffs. the Japanese were selling their bonds. Moody's, I think it was Moody's, could be wrong, but Moody's came in and downgraded the American credit rating from the best to the next level down. That's completely unprecedented in American history. And we are only 3-4 months into the administration here, guys.
That's right.
Okay. So that's what worries me. And that's why the hypothesis is important, because you need to understand the historical context, and you need to understand why we are where we are, and most likely where we're going to go. And that's the hypothesis will tell you that, right? But be wary of managed decline. When they start making you live in 15 or 20 or 30-minute cities, right? When they start restricting your movement, when they bring in social credit scores, all right? When they start bringing in restrictions on what you can eat, where you can eat. I mean, it's funny, right? Now, it starts small. It starts with things everybody agrees on. I'll give you 2 examples, then I'll shut up. 1, smoking. When I grew up, everybody smoked everywhere. On a plane, it was smoking. In my living room, I was blue fog. My father was smoking, mother was smoking. I watched my TV through a blue fog.
That's right.
Cigarette smoke is blue. And in the office, my mom's office, everybody smoked. The cars had cigarette lighters and ashtrays, and everybody was smoking everywhere. That's gone away because governments have regulated it out or made it expensive, etc., etc. So it's illegal to smoke certain. Okay. It's now illegal to smoke in certain areas. Full stop. It just is illegal, right? And that's just how it is. It's just and everybody says, yeah, that's a good idea, because it is. Most people think, oh yeah, it's not good for you, blah blah blah. So let's move forward and just accept it. So we've accepted it, and cigarettes now cost like $1,000 a packet. No, I'm joking. It's not $1,000 a packet, but it's ridiculous what it costs. Second, children really shouldn't have access to social media on the internet, because it's full of pornography and violence and predators. So we should really not allow them, to have internet under the age of 16. How do we do that? We give them some kind of ID or some kind of digital passport. That doesn't work. So we have to give everybody a digital passport. Right? So you have to identify yourself now if you're browsing the internet. I mean, not yet, but it will happen, right? Everybody thinks, yeah, that's a good idea. It protects the children. Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. This is what's happening. Our rights, the things we took for granted, are slowly being eroded. Mm-hmm. Now, I grew up in a seatbelt-free, bicycle-free, bicycle helmet-free, smoke-infested world where if I scuffed my knee, my parents would say, oh yeah, I should, if I'm lucky, slap on a Band-Aid and go out to play again. Where I broke my arm, and I would
walk it off.
My father would come and grab me, walk it off essentially. Yeah, but it's just you're playing outside, you're putting yourself in danger. And I know I'm a Gen Xer and all that, but we did. It was a rusty playground, and we played in building sites and in the forest, and near military installations where I lived, which is always fun. And sometimes people would find ordnance in the forest. And my grandfather taught me to shoot when I was 5 years old. I cleaned my gun, when I was 5 and 6, and I never forget the smell. It was called this gun oil, ballistol. It's in my this smell has this massive connection to my grandfather. Whenever I smell it, I think of my grandfather, the gun oil. But that's how we grew up, right? And it was a lot freer. 100 years ago or 150 years ago, you could carry a gun on your travels. You could go to the chemist and buy cocaine or heroin if you were so inclined. And that's also where you bought your petrol, by the way, for your car, right? But people just, they weren't restricted. I mean, you're an adult. You've survived childhood. So we trust that you aren't a complete idiot, right? So go ahead and do what you need to do. You want to drink yourself to death? Well, yeah, that's on you, right? You like to take cocaine? Well, knock yourself out. Here it is. You can buy it. It's available. It's a product. It was cocaine in Coca-Cola, Dave.
Bring back
Don't tell me that's the music.
The real Coca-Cola.
That's right.
Bring it back. Look, this is the end of the first hour, and the second hour we're going to be talking about, believe it or not, we're going to be talking about the hypothesis, part 1. And we'll see you after a very short break. And, oh, there's a new stream for the second hour. Thanks for being with us.